All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. For those who are maybe here for the first time, welcome. I just want to take a very brief moment and introduce Dr. Jann Ronis. It's really wonderful to have you here. He is the executive director of the Buddhist Digital Resource Center. And for the last, how many years you've been doing?
8 years.
8 years has been making sure that everything that has ever been put down on palm leaves, paper, anything of that matter is digitized for the world to see. So, yeah, something like that. Yeah, but it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you. And you grew up here, so he gets to come home every year for the holidays, and we get to have him here, which is wonderful. So, thank you for being here.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy holidays. It's nice to be back. I think this is my third time speaking here, but second annual visit. So let's make it an annual tradition from now on. All right. So maybe I'll say more about myself just in the course of the Q&A and so forth. I don't have a lot of experience talking about meditation or giving meditation instruction, but this is a kind of a beginner's drop-in session, and so I thought it would be, good for myself to reacquaint myself with meditation through giving some explanation and leading us through a short meditation, sort of learned by teaching experience. So I hope that sounds all right. I have tried to pitch this for beginners, but maybe there'll be some, little gems of wisdom that will be helpful for those of you that are more, advanced and dedicated in your practice. So how about we do a brief meditation, and then maybe I'll speak a little bit after that, and try to leave plenty of time for Q&A. And then we can all go back to our leftovers and so forth, and clean up after the holidays. Great. So, and again, this is called the Dharmabumtemple, so there's a Buddhist component to the things that are done here, and I'll try to address some Buddhist topics as well. But mainly we'll just be talking about kind of everyday meditation that's open and accessible to everybody. All right, meditation. So one way to think about meditation is that it's setting aside some time from life and creating a simplified space, or a kind of a controlled environment that's not a escape from reality, but it's more trying to just pare down experience to the core elements in a way that is helpful in those moments, therapeutically so, you could say, but is also a good training for the re-engaging with the world. Meditation and everyday life should reinforce each other in a way, right? The ultimate meditation is everyday life. But how about, we use that as kind of a opening guideline to today. Meditation is creating, deliberately, thoughtfully, based on, what the tradition has kind of passed down to us so generously, a kind of a controlled environment, you could say, a simplified space, safe space, in which we can try out some ways of approaching ourselves and our experience. So you can meditate in any different posture you like, but generally, you should have a relaxed and balanced posture. Try to lengthen the spine as much as you can, but without stressing yourself out too much. Again, if you have back pain or leg pain or something, adjust it as is necessary. But since most of us are seated in chairs or on the pews, we can focus on having our feet kind of out in front of us, feeling our butts on the cushion or on the hard wood. And then as for your arms and your shoulders, I see that many people have their palms down on their thighs. That's how I'm going to do it. The more traditional posture is to have your hands like this, one hand over the other with the two thumbs touching gently. You can do that if your shoulders and collarbone are perfectly level. That can be a very comfortable position. So either one, hands on your thighs, or this more traditional posture which opens up the chest. Your head doesn't need to be too far forward. It can be up like this, kind of your nose in line with your belly, feeling the length of your spine. Your eyes typically should be open. Don't stress out trying to focus on anything in particular, but leave them unfocused and open. You're going to be withdrawing mainly from your visual perceptions, but you don't want to space out too much. And sometimes for beginners, at least, if you close your eyes, all of a sudden you just start drifting off. So one way to think about the purpose of keeping the eyes gently just open and looking out in front of you 3 or 4 feet is that it's a good way to stay kind of grounded in the present moment. So we do that, and that's a big part of the physical aspect of meditation. The breath, now that's something that's because it's ethereal, sort of not entirely physical or entirely mental, but it's certainly a big part of meditation. And we'll go through some of the experience of breathing this morning. But a good way to get started at the beginning of a meditation session is to do 3 deep exhalations to kind of jumpstart this circulation of your breath. So I like to sort of gently force and exhale, and then you don't have to do anything to inhale. That'll just happen naturally. Your second exhale can be a little less forceful, but keep your mouth open and blow out through there. And the third one can be almost like a deep, settled meditation type breath. And then from here on out, let's try to breathe through our nostrils for both the inhalation and the exhalation. So focusing for now just on the body and the breath, let's have our awareness be in our diaphragm and also on our butts and our feet as a way of staying grounded, focusing on sensations that we don't usually pay attention to, but are still sort of coarse enough that it doesn't take too much effort to pay attention to them. So we feel our 10 toes, the lengths of our feet, the ball, the heel on the ground. I know it can be kind of cold here, so see how that is. Scan upwards from your feet, up your shins and knees, and then where your thighs connect to all the parts of your body that are touching the cushion. And now maybe scan up to your diaphragm, and let's do 3 complete breath cycles. with the breath, anchored in the diaphragm, but ultimately takes up a lot of space throughout the chest and up into the lungs, of course. We can sort of pay attention to that. And then let's check in on our shoulders and our arms. See if we notice any imbalance or tension. The hands can be loose, resting gently. You can make all the micro or macro adjustments you need so that you're settled, comfortable, so that you can sit like this for a few minutes. So try to hold in balance sensation of your breathing and your body. And from here we can expand out to ambient sounds and sensations. So there's the din of the traffic in the distance. Every once in a while you'll hear a bird, or the wood creaking. The point is just not to focus or get distracted on any of them, but to be able to have your awareness contain them all, so that we're able to experience them sort of simultaneously. It integrates your experience, your mind and your body and the environment. Balancing them out can be very relaxing and give you more self-awareness. And then elevate the scan further up through our neck and the face. Just mentally feeling around. Is there any tension or tightness? Are we smiling? Are we forcing a smile? Are things, our cheeks, our lips? Doesn't just be and again alternate between the sounds, the sensation of wind or temperature, our breath, different physical sensations from the inside. And maybe we'll do five breaths like this. So the body, the breath, the environment, meditation, awareness, concentration. It takes in those three things. But there's a fourth element that's very important, and I don't even have to bring it up because it's just always right there, impinging, so to speak, on our meditation. And those are thoughts, the mind. So I was saying earlier that meditation is like creating a simplified space or a controlled environment. So we've gotten this morning so far in touch with our bodies, the situation. We're being gentle with ourselves, relaxing, opening up. We're curious about what's going on. But we probably also felt like distraction is, quote unquote, a problem. Or what are we supposed to do with our these thoughts that keep either distracting us or getting us caught up in parts of our lives that don't have anything to do with the here and the now. Either thoughts about the past or the future. So a good beginner's approach to thoughts when it comes to meditation is to initially start to check in about major patterns that occur in our mind. So we can do that by labeling our thoughts. And that doesn't mean pursuing particular lines of thought or getting caught up in a dominant narrative, but instead just doing a sort of an inventory as things come up. Label thoughts somewhat specifically. Thoughts about work, thoughts about Christmas Eve, thoughts about particular issues. They're all going to be very, very idiosyncratic to us. So I won't, I'll let you come up with your own labels, but while we're feeling grounded, we have things to be absorbed into, to pay attention to, physical sensations, breath, the environment. We're going to, become aware of our thoughts. Either there'll be particular storylines that are very loud in our minds, or there's just a kind of a flow of undivided kind of mental waves or chatter. If there's particular loud thought patterns, just give a label, thinking about X, and then let it go, and without suppressing it, tune back into the broader context. So when we say that meditation is creating a simplified space, and that it should be a sort of a microcosm of our daily life, one way to conceptualize this is to say that what meditation is creating is a bigger container. Those are the ABCs of meditation, a bigger container. And it's really a bigger container for our mental activity, our thoughts, our patterns that can get us caught up in suffering, self-centeredness, misery. So in labeling the thoughts, we don't have to sit back and try to, get each one. It's not a video game. Just label and then let it go without suppressing, and then tune back into whatever you find to be most relaxing or grounding. Could be the sounds, especially if you live someplace where you hear the rustling of the leaves or beautiful birds or waves or something. Here it's not too loud, but there might be something auditory for you to return to. Or it could be your breath. Wherever you go, you've always got your breath with you. That might be something nice to focus in on. Or it could be physical sensations. But don't worry, the thoughts will come back. And over time, you'll start to not only have a better understanding of the content of your thoughts, but especially sort of the patterns. Even just recognizing that you're thinking can be a revelation. That will allow you to get some distance from them. But now enough of me. Let's put that into practice. Maybe we'll sit for 10 breath cycles. Body, breath, the environment, and then thought labeling. Thinking about X and then let it go if possible. And if it doesn't go away, then thinking about it again. Thinking about, without judgment and without pursuit, and again within this bigger container, this larger container that we're creating. So earlier I said that it's hard to distinguish between the breath and the body. Could have lumped together the breath and the physical sensations. But we decided to look at them somewhat separately. The same can be said about thoughts. As you label, release, return, you'll be less caught up in the content of the thoughts, and you'll start to recognize the emotional vibrations of the thoughts. After you let them go, you might begin to notice where in the body the emotional responses that accompany the thoughts are. And as you turn your gentle awareness to the emotional leftovers, the physical / emotional leftovers of the thoughts, you will begin to create more distance between your thought patterns and your present, your reality. You'll gain more of a perspective of how the thought patterns, impact your, not just your mentality, but your body, your well-being. It takes time to become acquainted with this. I don't want to say make progress, but to become more familiar with this. But if we want to be more in the present, then understanding what's going on at a more subtle physical / mental level is really important. staying grounded in that will help us with this larger container. And as we begin to see the kind of physical vibrations of mental patterns, and by here I mean sort of the not pleasant or not healthy mental patterns, we can begin to see what they're doing to us and have more of a resolution, so to speak, to no longer be so invested in them or give them so much of our energy, or to have a resolution to kind of see through them and take a different perspective to our lives, to our bodies, and to our spiritual practice. So the body, the breath, the environment, our thoughts, it's all interrelated. And what we're doing through meditation is generating for ourselves a larger container. And it can lead to focus, concentration, relaxation, or reset while we're sitting on the cushion or in a comfortable chair during these moments that we set aside for meditation. But I think you can see that this larger container also can be carried out into everyday life, and that ultimately it can accommodate our total being, total reality, not just personally, but interpersonally as well. Shall we sit for 10 more breath cycles? All right. Maybe start to sort of retract the larger container that we've created. Maybe do a body scan starting from your face down through your shoulders, your arms. You might notice that actually you've become quite tense during this meditation, or you're still relaxed, or just a little in need of a readjustment. Feel your butt on the cushion, down back to your feet. Your contact with the floor, with the earth. The nice company we have here. Large group of people all assembled today for the same things. And then, well, that's how I meditate. And I hope it was a good introduction to those of you who are new, or that for those of you that meditate, some interesting new angles were introduced, or at a minimum, just a relaxing way to spend your time here at the Dharmabumtemple. A thought that can trip me up, as you go through different layers of labeling your thoughts and understanding what's going on in your mind, is thinking about meditating. Sometimes actually my mind will play tricks on me, and I'm no longer worried about work, but I'm actually very caught up in meditating. And so you can even think that thoughts about meditation are not thoughts, that's actually the meditation. And you see, oh no, that's again just another level of sort of self-centered thinking that can be deceptively friendly and virtuous, but is also another barrier to just being open and in the moment. All right, well, we have time for questions, answers, a discussion. I think, it's the halfway point of the hour. So I'd love to hear from some of you, and if you have a question or just want to make a comment or observation, please share your contribution, and let's take it from there. Hi.
Hi. So you're digitizing Buddhist scripture,
Mm-hmm.
and so obviously there are AI implications to that.
Yes.
And I know that in Japanese temples there have been robots leading temple services, and there's even an AI chatbot that calls itself Avalokiteshvara. And what do you think the challenges of that? Because obviously, if you're digitizing that, you want to make it public, but also it's becoming fodder for AI chatbots, which are known to be sycophantic.
Yes.
And from what I know about dealing with questions and answers in terms of Buddhism, you often don't hear what you want to hear.
Yes.
So what do you think the challenges that you face with digitizing that record, and what are the potential implications for us moving forward?
Sure. So in brief, just some relevant background. The organization I work for is called the Buddhist Digital Resource Center, and we were started 25 years ago. And what we do is we go to temples and libraries and personal collections in Asia, and we digitize their Buddhist texts. And we mainly focus on Tibetan Buddhism, but we work also in Cambodia and Burma. And we have digitized over 25 million pages. So I just say that as a background, because our mission is to create dumb, inert, two-dimensional photographic reproductions of the text. We got started way before AI. The point was just to make these images with the writing clearly visible, put them online for scholars and translators and monks and lamas and so forth. And we've had a lot of impact doing that. But in the last few years, yes, AI has changed so much of everybody's work, and there are lots of ways that AI can help, or at least be part of what we're doing, or the way that our end users are utilizing the text. So I won't get into too much of the technicalities. Let's just talk about AI chatbots, whether or not my organization is involved in those or not. There's another chatbot called Buddha at the gas pump. That's kind of interesting. You can Google it. And let's start with psychophancy. Yeah, I would be very, very, very cautious about getting spiritual advice, meditation advice from AI. And most of you don't look like the kinds of people that would do that, but you never know, right? A lot of people just have these ongoing conversations with AI because AI is sycophantic. It's friendly, it's welcoming, it doesn't get tired, especially if you pay the $20 a month to have unlimited access. But sycophancy, right? It tells you what you want to hear. It compliments you. It overlooks your faults. And so if you go to it and you say, I just had a really great meditation. More than at any time, I just felt so focused and concentrated. And in fact, I was at this temple and everyone else was kind of fidgeting, but I was like a rock. I was like a statue. It felt so good. Was I doing it right? Yes, you were. Oh my gosh, good for you. Bravo, right? That's what you would probably hear. And then all of a sudden you start relying on that, those compliments, getting glowed up by the AI. So it has all kinds of ulterior motives to tell you what you want to hear, to make you feel good. So that's one reason not to rely on it. The other is just it hallucinates answers. And so if we're just talking about Buddhism, AI, and I won't dwell on this for too long because it's maybe not what everyone's too worried about right now. But Buddhism is, if you look at all the books, and I focus on the texts, there's a diverse range of theories, approaches, contemplative modalities contained within Buddhism, right? The reason my organization keeps, seeking out texts around the Buddhist world, around Asia, is because there are so many different perspectives, so many different stories and meditations and philosophies. We want to just embrace all of it because diversity is good. Buddhism is strong and can appeal to people around the world because it has so many different things to say. And so the flip side of that diversity is that there are a lot of internal contradictions, so to speak. And with AI, and then furthermore, the texts are largely, written a long time ago, not in the modern day. So this, dumb AI bot, it's very intelligent in many ways, but still, how is it going to parse what you say, understanding what your real needs and implications are, and then give you an answer that's relevant? No, it's going to dumb things down or say things that, are kind of lowest common denominator, and anyways, are just not going to be as tailor-made or as honest as if you were speaking one-on-one with a person, with a Sangha member, with a community member, or someone that's trained as a teacher. So you can hear me say these things and come away thinking that I'm kind of AI averse. I am on a personal level.
Me too.
Okay, good. Yes.
I have a typewriter.
You have a typewriter. Okay. But there are certain AI technologies that are really important to the work we do. So like OCR, optical character recognition. That's still, that's computer vision, it's machine learning, but it's not about dispensing actual spiritual advice. So, hopefully it will get better, AI bots, before it, ruins the economy and the environment. But I would say that AI is very seductive. People, I have a family member, I hope she's not watching right now, but every morning she wakes up and she consults AI on her dreams. And AI, it's her dream interpreter. Hey, I totally get why that is appealing. You can ask AI, I don't know, maybe for lottery number of recommendations, but leave it there. I wouldn't dabble in meditation instructions. Well, maybe instruction, but not meditation interpretation. And too much psychological advice, because apparently it's really easy to get caught up into this one-on-one closed loop of feedback that tends to distort people's thinking rather than bring more clarity. And hey, you guys are really fortunate. You have the Dharmabumtemple. It's open pretty much 7 days a week. There's always an opportunity to come here and be with real people, and have teachers and others kind of, allow you to check in on yourself and get a reality check. We're not way out in living in the boondocks where maybe AI is our only opportunity. So I want to just add that element that, for some people, it's maybe the best they can get. And so I'm not going to, begrudge them that. Hi.
Hi, what you do is so interesting and so admirable. I'm interested in hearing a little bit about kind of how you got involved in this, and then what are some of the challenges that, because my understanding is that the texts are, they're at risk of being lost.
Yes.
So just maybe speak to some of that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So I'm happy to talk about VDRC. If people want to hear about it, that's great. So one way to sort of talk about the work and what's happening here is to say that I invite people to experiment in reading translations of the old texts. I would never claim that they're 100% relevant or even very easy to understand. But Buddhists have been writing scriptures and commentaries and interpretations and contemplative manuals for 2,500 years now. A lot of the classics have already been translated. Many of them are available for free online, but there's wonderful published commercial translations as well. Again, not all of them are going to be immediately relevant or very practical, but one way to sort of stay grounded and to get an alternative perspective that's not just AI psychophancy is to look at a text from 1,500 years ago and check in and see what the core issues in terms of meditation or ethics or philosophy were back then. And you might get some, you will get some gems of wisdom there that would complement, the pop psychology that you often, hear about from kind of more popular forms of spirituality. But so how did I get interested in all of this? When I was in high school here in San Diego, I used to go to the Zen Center of San Diego on Feldspar Street in Pacific Beach. I don't know if any of you have much experience with that place, but not too far from here. And then that's where I got my first kind of introduction to Buddhism. And then I went to college and studied Buddhism while I was there, took a lot of classes in Buddhism. Anyways, long story short, I did a semester abroad in India and just fell in love with being in Asia, with learning a Buddhist language, Tibetan is what I studied while I was there. And I liked experiencing traditional Asian Buddhism. So I thought, okay, well, I'm about to graduate from college. What can I do that will allow me to continue to visit Asia, learn languages, and kind of study Buddhism in a formal way? And I thought, okay, well, I could just hang around in Asia. Actually, a professor told me there's two things you can do. You can become a Dharma bum, and that was the word he used, but he meant, like the kind of hippies that were, hanging around the major Buddhist sites in Kathmandu and India, just kind of do that, or go to graduate school. And I thought, well, my parents probably aren't going to pay for me to be a Dharma bum, or maybe they would, but I really don't want to just hang around here indefinitely. graduate school sounds like it would, check all the boxes, but be a little more, socially acceptable and a little bit just kind of easier to manage. And so I went to graduate school and just was always interested in keeping my connection to Buddhism in Asia and not working on some topic that I could just do on my own, in the carrel at the library, just working on translating a text, just me and the dictionary and my professors. I wanted to find a topic that would allow me to spend time meaningfully with Buddhist communities in Asia. This was late 90s, early 2000s, a time of tremendous change and modernity and upheaval even, especially in the communities I was looking at, Tibetan communities in China. And so I just was warmly welcomed and shown so much hospitality by these monasteries that were themselves going through major changes. When I first showed up at the monastery that I wrote my PhD about, they didn't have electricity, didn't have any kind of phone service, and transportation was really bad. And no running, did I say running water? No electricity, running water, no phone service, transportation. It's really tough to get there. And the monks that I was, and the teachers that I was hanging out with had basically spent 99% of their lives without electricity. They asked me things like, I heard that in Kongding they have these tall buildings. Oh yes, they do. They're 6, 7 stories high. And then they have these contraptions and you walk in and it raises you up, to the top floor so you don't have to take the stairs. And I said, yeah, elevators. So I felt like I'd gone back in time. But over the 10 years that I visited every summer, electricity, phones, better transportation, airports were built somewhat nearby. Major generational changes were happening. 2 or 3 generations kind of they took place over the course of this 1 decade. And so it was very significant for me to be there on the ground watching these changes take place. And so I think that sensitized me to how fragile the traditions were. And so then later on, when I had this opportunity to work for this organization to digitally preserve manuscripts, because all we do is digitize them. We don't buy them or take them away. They're all digitized on site. I thought, yes, this is important. Traditions need to develop and change. That's inevitable. I'm not trying to hold anybody back or direct the evolution of Buddhism, not at all. But the texts, they can so easily be lost or damaged or destroyed or sold on the black market that I thought that while change is inevitable and should happen, there's impermanence, these texts, they're all one of a kind. And might as well get accurate snapshots of them now so that the roots of the tradition are maintained.
Just a quick question.
Of course.
So when you went to the monastery where you did your graduate work,
Mhm.
were you already proficient enough to speak to them in Tibetan, or were they speaking English to you, or how did you all communicate?
They didn't know any English at all, and they didn't know Chinese that well either. I mean, most of them had just the most basic Chinese. So we all spoke Tibetan, but they spoke a different dialect than me. So I'll tell you that actually when I first arrived, it was a reconnaissance trip. It was October, so it was already pretty cold. And I wanted to go just for a few days to this one monastery because my professor had told me, you should check this place out. In fact, he told myself and a classmate, there's at least 2 dissertations worth of things to say about this place. It's incredible. It's so vibrant right now. And it's so off the grid that you guys could just go and be totally immersed for a couple of years. You should do that. I was the only one that took him up on that offer. But at any rate, I show up, and initially I just wanted to do a kind of a reconnaissance, and I didn't know the dialect well at all. I was really in kind of the boonies. And so the teacher said, I can't believe you traveled halfway around the world to be here. Wow, we want to reciprocate by giving you what you're asking for, hospitality and instruction. But it's cold, and we can see that you're not ready for a Tibetan winter. And then furthermore, we can't really speak to each other very well. So here's, what you need to do. Go back to Chengdu, which is the capital of Sichuan province. This area of Tibet is part of Sichuan province these days. You need to go back down to Chengdu, study intensively this dialect. And I was already planning on doing that. He said, and then my nephew is a Lama who lives in that area. Here's a text, it's 15 pages long. You have to study this with him. And if you come back next spring and you can speak our dialect, we can talk to each other, and you've studied this text so that I know you have some, kind of preliminary background, then yes, come and stay with us. And so then I did all of that. I studied the text twice, in fact, and then I returned, and the Lama said, I knew you'd be back. But the monks said, oh my gosh, I can't believe you returned. We thought that, that you would not be able to hack it, and that you, weren't going to want to subject yourself to these primitive conditions anymore. And so then we had just this wonderful relationship. And in fact, this morning I went for a swim, and I was, just kind of planning on what I was going to talk about. And I thought, what would, the Lama that I studied with in Tibet, what would he want me to discuss? What would he want me to say? How can I, sort of fulfill what his aspirations for me by, just being helpful and with people who want to learn more about meditation and the Dharma and so forth. Yeah, so no, it was not easy. There were cultural barriers, linguistic barriers, and then just it was tough living there, without all those conditions. But I can say that because of their warmth and hospitality and their excitement about having a Westerner just, uninvited show up and say, I want to study you and learn from you, that they really, gave me everything I could have hoped for.
I guess the question relates to,
Yeah.
because of course you have a certain perspective and they have a certain perspective. Sometimes perspectives might have clashed. How to get in a place where you're able to be receptive to their perspective? And sometimes you don't want to be swinging something that's not right. So how did you, because that's an issue I challenge with, how do you be open to other perspectives while maintaining your own?
Sure, yes. Well, I was able to get good at the dialect because, I didn't have anything else to do but talk to these people, and they were so interested in asking me questions about the West, about elevators, about, this theory that the globe is round, and all of this stuff. But, a question I got 50 times, if I got it once, was, have you converted your parents yet? And I said, no. And they said, what? You're wasting all your time here in Tibet to educate yourself. Your obligation is to repay your parents' kindness. And the best thing you can do for them is to make them Buddhist. You know how great Buddhism is. How come you're not focused on that? And I had to say, well, in America, there's this thing called freedom of religion, and it's not good to be dogmatic. And at first that didn't compute, but then over time, I learned ways to explain that in a more culturally appropriate way. And so I don't know why that example came to mind first, but sure, there were definitely we had to learn to understand our kind of core fundamental operating, ideas, and then find some common ground, and ultimately there was. But, I'll tell you that while I was swimming and thinking about, okay, what would the Lama want me to teach? I thought, this Lama that I talked to, he didn't appreciate very much that in the West, mindfulness meditation was sort of the main thing, the end all be all of Buddhism. And I was kind of surprised actually when he told me that. This was in the context of him asking about a teacher named Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. It was one of the few lamas that was popular in the West that he had heard about. It's kind of a notorious lama, and so I think that's why he had heard a little bit about him. And I said, oh yeah, I think he's a great teacher. His books, he has these books, called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, and a few other titles. I said they were really helpful for me. And this Lama was incredibly effective at teaching meditation to Westerners. He said, oh, really? What? Tell me about his meditation method. And I told him. And he said, okay, and that's it? I said, yeah, isn't that fantastic? Wait, it was just that? Just the sitting and the breathing? And then maybe, labeling your thoughts and, letting them fly away? Just that? I said, yeah, that's what he came, and he, attracted thousands of disciples and wrote these amazing books. So he's had a positive impact on the West. And I said, that's like step one of a 100-step process. That's like the preliminary of the preliminary. And I said, yeah, but we're Westerners. We're so far from Tibet. We are complete beginners. We're know-nothings. And I said, okay, but I wish you would have pushed a little further. But, and I'm not saying I agree with the Lama. I think that, for our mentality and our lifestyle and for the things that we need to work through, that was really important. And so if I can kind of bring all this back to kind of a more general level, I got interested in meditation at age like 17, 18, meditated through college and so forth. I really don't think I made very much progress in my life, in understanding my mind, in changing bad habits and so forth. It really wasn't until I started going to therapy in my late 30s that I thought, oh, wow, this is what I, should have accomplished through meditation. And then I thought, but I was so young when I started meditating, and meditation actually, isn't the same as therapy. Oh, now I understand why that first meditation teacher I went to instructed people to label their thoughts for 5 years. In her books, she says, you should actually do this very boring routine thing for 4 or 5 years, because we have so many ingrained patterns that it takes that long before you really understand, what your mind is up to, and by extension, what's holding you back, what's got you all, caught up in your delusions in the first place. And so in a way, I probably got interested in meditation too early. And I probably needed just more like everyday growing up. So, but anyways, no regrets. But just to say that, yeah, those are the kinds of conversations that would have been really difficult to have with the monks in Tibet, because for them, psychological growth is not the main thing, not at all. It's making good karma. It's understanding really well particular Buddhist theories, and whether you're psychologically healthy or not, that's secondary to, are you prepared now for a better rebirth in your next life? So maybe I can bring that back to saying that, one thing that's interesting about reading, these earlier scriptures and treatises written in Asia for an Asian traditional audience is that it allows us to actually see that there is more to the spiritual path than just psychological growth or relaxation or being in the here and now. Right? Ethics, meditation, concentration. We need all three to really, make growth, to grow in an orthodox, traditional, very healthy, full and balanced Buddhist way. And so that's what maybe you'll get from reading these older texts. You'll see that it's not just about navel gazing, so to speak. Not that what I was talking about is navel gazing, but But anyways, yeah, those are some of the kind of interesting conversations and cultural gaps that we got to talk about. Jeff? Oh, yeah, 12. One more question? Oh, yes, please.
So I was, studied all this text. Are there any texts in particular that you find really helpful?
Sure. I knew someone was going to ask that. I was just panicking right before you raised your hand. Oh no, but what if they ask for a reading list?
I actually had thought about that before I asked. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Ironically, in my current job, I'm just drowning in books. I don't actually get time to sit and see the forest for the trees. But in the past, I've studied things. I will just default to the classics. So the Entering the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, sometimes translated as Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, is beautiful. There's no mystery as to why it's been popular in Asia and for 1,000 years, and is also one of the first texts that was translated into Western languages, and is something that the Dalai Lama and others teach over and over again. So the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life is, maybe some of you heard about it, or you have it already on your shelves, but just in brief, it's got 10 or 11 chapters, and sort of indirectly it goes over the 10 perfections. We're maybe used to hearing about the 6 perfections, but there's really 10, but the 6 main ones, right? Generosity, patience, ethics, energy, virya, what's perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. Those are the 6 kind of main Buddhist virtues. And this text, it's in verse. It's very poetic. There's a lot of imagery. It can be quite graphic, in fact. It discusses those things: generosity, patience, ethics, energy, concentration, and wisdom. So that's very balanced, and it's beautiful because of the poetic language, but it also will force you to confront some very foreign or archaic ways of thinking as well, but in a way that you'll have to just think, okay, I need to separate the wheat from the chaff and get at what he's talking about. But at least this isn't made up. It comes from a tradition that has longevity, beauty, also baggage. But what's really, and there's a ton of commentaries about it. So those are wonderful. If you want something that's less ornate, the earliest scriptures, the Pali Canon, the earliest treatises on meditation are wonderful. And Thich Nhat Hanh has some great translations and commentaries on that. So that's sort of like from the A to the Z. But those are wonderful. Then there's an organization that my group partners with called 84,000, 84,000.co. And they are translating the entire Buddhist canon into English. And every time they finish a translation, it goes online. They're not publishing any books. It's just all going to be digital. But there you'll have a wide selection of different treatises. Again, some of them are going to be very ritualistic and not practical, but many of them have a lot to say to us. And you can dabble because it's all kind of online. Yeah, sure. All right, well, thank you for this. I hope that you have a lovely new year. Hope we can reconnect next winter. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah,
as always.
I just quick thank you. Every time I hear you, I'm just reminded that I wish you were here more often, because we'd love to have you here more often, but really wonderful to have you here. Just an incredible honor and treat. Your story, thank you for asking about his personal journey, because it blows my mind. I mean, just incredible.
Yours is very similar, yes.
We're just
We're
two
Dharmabumtemple, yeah, in Asia,
which is kind of funny. But and here we are in San Diego.
yeah. Preserving the tradition, the text, and the realization,
Yeah.
as we say. Yeah, the Dharma has two elements: the written word and the mental realization.
Yeah.
You're covering the mental realization. I'm doing the text. Yeah.
I'm just trying to get through my day, but thank you. But before y'all head out, we do have our Dharmabum host, Kevin, who's going to do a few announcements. It's his first time hosting, so go easy on him. And then I'll do one at the end. But again, Jan, thank you again.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, thanks.
Hey everyone, I'm today's host. My name's Kevin. We opened the Dharmabumtemple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction. And our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes in our programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it, then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again.
And wait, hang on.
And one quick announcement. So next Saturday, that's the 4th, there's going to be a silent half-day meditation retreat. So please join us. It starts at 8 a.m. And
And one more announcement before we head out. Actually, a couple things we forgot to mention about Jan. I'll send out, it was in the last newsletter, I'll send it out again and also on social media, but the Buddhist Digital Resource Center, go to the website. It's incredible, so you can learn more. You can, track Jan down and ask more questions. But I'll send out all the info. And I'm not usually one to sit up here and plug Buddha for you, but every Thursday night we actually do a book study on it's Pema Chodron's newest translation of The Way of the Bodhisattva. And we do have that downstairs, Way of the Bodhisattva, Buddha for you. So again, I don't usually plug it, but if you are looking for that text, we have it. So, and lastly, New Year's. This will be our 20th annual, believe it or not, Dharmabumtemple New Year's Eve celebration. So we will be here at 7 o'clock. We'll do a vegetarian potluck. 9 o'clock, I'll tell the history and vision of Dharmabumtemple. And at 11:30, we'll all come up here. We'll do a silent meditation into midnight. The whole night is not silent. It's just the last 30 minutes. So you can come at 7 and be home in bed by 9 o'clock. You can come at 9 and hang out for the story. Or this place usually fills up by about 11:30 anyways. It is chilly in here, dress warm. And if you've never done a silent and sober New Year's, this is your opportunity to get both of them done at the same time, and you'll probably survive and be okay. So thank you all again, Jan. Thank you. And I'm sure he's here if you have any questions. So thank you. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.